Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and today we're looking at Chips Challenge 2. I need to start with a apology when I cover Chip Challenge 1. Because of the weird, I assume, re-encoded interface that is running these puzzle files, it let me turn up the magnification up to 3 times, and that fit my screen, or at least I thought it fit my screen, but actually there was the entire bottom part of the screen, which looks very odd and off center, um, was just clipped off, both in the recording and in the actual window. It didn't resize anything internally, as far as the internal bounding box is what you would call it. So I spent covering the whole time covering and spotlighting Chips Challenge 1. It's like I remember there being a timer indicator and a number of chips indicator. And yes, all of those things did exist. They were just at the bottom of the screen clipped off, and I didn't catch it because this is just such a um, weirdly old game. Uh, Once again, we are in a situation where the music does not start until you get into the first level. Welcome to Chips Challenge 2. Press enter. When we last left our hero, oh, by the way, I should also mention there was over 150 levels in Chips Challenge 1. I got to, I think, maybe 20 at most. Uh, so I'm glad I didn't try to power through it and do all the levels. There's, with a Steam Workshop level expansion 1 for Chips Challenge 2, there is over 400 levels in Chips Challenge 2. So we obviously won't be doing all of those. When we left off, when we last left, comma, our hero, Chip McCallahan, uh, he had won the heart of Melinda the Mental Marvel. Once again, they separated Mental and Marvel on a different line. Like, there clearly must be some limitation as far as how much RAM they were originally using on the Atari Lynx, um, and or Windows 3.1, and so they are changing the tile sets specifically in that one area, and then they are using, I think, a lot less RAM for the outer boundaries where the um, time remaining and all of that is which there was all kinds of weird tricks you had to do in such limited RAM and video RAM environments. And back in this day, it wouldn't have been RAM and video RAM so much as it would have just been RAM, and the like video cards, if any existed, would be, well, no, there were some video cards, and they used to be huge with tons of chips of RAM on them, but and they still weren't really capable of doing anything. Yeah. You see like an old video card, an old VGA card, for instance, and it is a shock on just how small computer components have gotten. If they hadn't gotten smaller, computers would have never caught on and been able to do anything. Uh, Anyways, I got distracted there. You won the heart of Melinda the Mental Marvel, and they were celebrating together at the Bitbusters annual E-Prom. So that's a very early use of the word E-Prom, although E hyphen something like email, I think it is a lot older than people would think. Chip and Melinda led the Bitbusters to victory after brainy victory. I thought they were a computer appreciation club, not a, I don't know, esports team would be a modern term. Then a challenge was issued by the International Brain Game Club, the Puzzle Masters. Press enter. As the two best players, Chip and Melinda, were put to the test, could they finish the next challenge? And Vladimir Gurjecki, the test administrator, explains we will begin with a simple lesson to teach you the rules of the game. You will notice we have borrowed game elements you already know from your club. It is now time to begin. Step on the question marks for it. That's a better intro. So, yeah, you can now see at the bottom of the screen it says level 1, and there's a time and there's chips left, and all of that was clipped off. Also, this is lesson 1 by Chuck Somerville, who was, I guess we're going with the creator of Chips Challenge. I think that's the idea. He never, as I've understood it quickly reading Wikipedia, he did it for like a work for hire or something like that. So a company owned Chips Challenge 1, and then that company went out of business, and then a different company bought the rights to Chips Challenge. And then he had to negotiate what was, in his opinion, a ridiculous five-digit agreement to buy back the rights to Chips Challenge and republish it on Steam in 2015. And while he was negotiating for that, he also put out a game called Chuck's Challenge and Chuck's Challenge 3D, which is a much more modern take on this idea. We have the original graphics turned on also, just for your information. Now, what's going to be weird, pick up the blue key by walking over it, is we probably want to turn the audio a little bit down first. So let me adjust that, because we don't need it to be particularly loud at all. Notice the blue key in the box below. It means you have a blue key. This tutorial is way better than the first game. Of course, it still didn't really teach you WASD as far as keyboard controls. And the danger here, I believe, is that at some point we are going to control 2 players in Chips Challenge 2, bringing Melinda into the game, because she certainly isn't just following you around in a single player mode. Use the blue key to open this blue door by walking into it. Notice the blue key is now gone. You used it to open the door. Use the red key to open the red door. So, this is a much better tutorial. Use the yellow key to open the yellow door. Remember, this would have been Atari Lynx Windows 3.1 era, so everything really does need to be explained. Use the green key to open the green door. And it feels like there is an actual way. Use the new blue key to open the other blue door. Notice you still have the green key. Don't open this blue door. If you do, you'll be stuck and have to press F1 to restart. Interesting. So I assume if I did get stuck, it would give me the hint to press F1 and hit restart. When you walk on dirt, it turns to floor. Yeah, that is something that wasn't explained well. When you have more than one of the same key, you can see the count up to 9. Very different sound effects each time we do something. Step on ice and take a slide. And notice there are little redirectors. Now pick up the ice cleats and walk on the ice to the next clue. Notice that there are ice cleats in the box below. That means you have the ice cleats. Grant a handful of bonus flags for your hard work so far. And look how it is all popping up at the bottom in interface. Feels like they may be stretching the score at the bottom, but not stretching the other things. You can't carry a tool of this type across this sign. The red thief will take all tools from the bottom right. He also takes half of your bonus points. Interesting. So we have to lose this. So if you were going to get the highest score here, you would have hit the thief first, then gotten the bonus points. So my complaint in Chips Challenge 1 was that there was too much going on and no consistent like gameplay mechanic to tie everything together. At best, the shoes are the gameplay mechanic. You can't carry a key of this color. Blue Thief takes all keys from the bottom left. He also takes half of your bonus points. So, yeah, you would have wanted to get to this point. Pick up all these chips. As you pick up chips, watch the chip left counter below the countdown. When the chips counter reaches 0, you can pass through the chip socket. Yeah, I looked at all the Steam achievements, by the way, for Chips Challenge 1. And see, these arrows just don't mean anything. And yeah, one of them definitely circles around doing all of the levels, or most of the levels, so it's not something I'd put time into. Green force floors are like one-way moving sidewalks, which is funny because moving sidewalks basically don't exist. There's a few places where they do exist. Escalators and airports have horizontal, I forget what they're called when they're flat escalators. There's a different word for it. But you could easily go through your lifetime and never step on one. These green magnet shoes will let you walk on a force floors without getting carried away. I wouldn't call them magnet shoes, I would have called them suction cup shoes. That's what they look like, but whatever. And then this guy's gonna take everything from us. And so, best case scenario, you are going to run into a situation where you could only lose half your bonus points. You can stand still, sort of, by walking against the force field. To get to that. Swivel doors turn as you walk through them. They will only turn if you push on them as you leave the square. Work your way through this maze to the exit by the red arrow. So, you have to be able to swivel the door, which means you have to go in here, and then probably up here and over here. The swivel is a little weird because it is rotating a right angle into another right angle, whereas it would make more sense for the swivel doors to be in the middle of the block, spinning on a central pivot. This way makes it feel fairly silly. But the game is limited. It's an old game. What can you really expect? Be careful here. The water can drown you if you aren't prepared. If you do die, press F1 to restart the level. Use these flippers to safely cross the water. And this definitely feels like a more complete intro. Now, arguably, maybe there should be a few tutorial levels because this is just covering everything really fast. But I could also see having only one tutorial level so you can skip the level fairly quickly. Be careful walking into the fire. It can burn you if you're not prepared. These fire boots will let you walk on the fire safely. And then I lose everything. Floating turtles sink when you step off them. You can only step on them once. So the animations don't seem to matter on the turtles. Which does bring about an interesting question as to why do the bandits not animate but the turtles do. I guess maybe because the bandits are always going to be like things you can walk on safely, whereas fire and water and turtles are all things that could be dangerous to walk on. Pop-up walls spring up from the floor. When you step off them, you can only step on them once. Is there really a reason why you would need two of the exact same action there? No, but I think this is probably an improvement from Chips Challenge 1 as far as stepping on specific places and having a wall appear. There's now more logical explanation as to where the walls are coming from. Push the dirt block into the water to make a dirt bridge. Then you step on the dirt, which they had already told you that stepping on dirt turned it into a tile, so you'd already learned that, although I believe you could have forgotten it by now. You can't push a dirt block over dirt. Clear out the dirt in front of the block before you build the bridge. Okay. So they're reinforcing that idea. This doesn't feel like a dirt block, though. It feels more like a brick block. Push both of these blocks into one to make a bridge that's 2 squares long. You can only push one dirt block at a time. After you push the dirt into the water, remember to step on the dirt so that you can push the second block over it. Yeah, that does feel like they are really trying to make sure you know how to play the game. Which probably really highlights how new computers and the concept of video games were to people, that Chips Challenge 2 felt the need to actually inform people things that by modern 2022 standards would be so blatantly obvious and wouldn't need tutorials. Be careful here, walking on these bombs will blow you up. Of course, there is also a case, push a dirt block into a bomb to clear the path to the exit. The exit is the blue square. Like, there is... Congratulations, you made it to the X. Pick up the 2x to double your bonus before you leave. So that got me to 450 as far as a bonus. Yowzer's first try. There was also an achievement for getting the Yowzer's first try bonus with the first like 20 levels, which seems like a lot. So let's switch over from the original to the Windows appearance. And then play Chips Challenge 2 again. Yeah. And basically, I want the whole audio to go away. And we can see that while some of this may make a little bit more sense visually with the doors, it looks a lot worse. And I don't think there's any good reason, if you're given the option, which you wouldn't have been given the option, to want to play this way versus the original way. So now you have a blue thief, although he is being described as the red thief at the bottom, so he's not even red. And this is the blue thief. They put him in totally the wrong order. So now what you would want to do is come back and grab all the bonus. You should be safe to run this way. And in the middle of this level is the only point where you actually collect chips, which is really the thing that should be the main focus. Which is to say, the movement here, and the thing, if you were to take a second pass on this idea, would be to have the have the shoes be chips also. So if there was a special power-up chip that gave you the power to walk on the shoes, I thought I was stuck there for a second, then that would be better if the thieves for some reason were connected to chips, and then they were like rival computer nerds or computer chip thieves. That might make some more sense instead of them stealing shoes and keys. Let's see, as a much less detailed pile of dirt there, and the audio sounds way worse. And you very well would. You could keep the water as water, that makes sense. The fire is fire, that makes sense. Ice is ice. There is even an emphasis here where you could say, hey, these are all things that are bad for computers. It is ridiculous, though, that the Windows version here is different. And so we finished it, and then it does a Windows pop-up that you're not seeing as far as the previous score and the new high score and all of that. So overall that got me 1404 this time. But boy, does that look way, way worse. There are some custom things you could also do, or custom combinations of themes where you can mix the two, but I think most people would just keep it simple and make it and play the original. All Ice by Brad McCleary. So at this point, you are seeing that, that there are different limitations as far as who is making what. And the trick here is just to spin around and hit the lines. And you can probably move fast enough to get the right line done. Just keep spinning, making the same sound effects. Right. Like going up and down here is actually inefficient. You're better off just going back and forth until you can clear all the rows. But this level clearly has the feel of being made by someone completely different, and its focus is like way different as far as how the game play elements are supposed to work. Yeah, this is all action in a game that I think is better off being more all puzzle. So this really is just a case of taking your time, just getting to this point. And there's no real benefit for opening all the chip gates or anything like that. So that is pretty whiplash inducing. Some of these keys could get in the way. We need 4 chips. I don't know how. I don't know why any of these would particularly get in the way. I think the only thing that might happen here is you might end up with 9 keys and then not want to pick up any more. Which you can pick up more than 9 apparently, and you can hold more than 9 apparently, because there's a whole plus to it. See, and this just feels weird. Like there's nothing here to this. Seems like you can, by default, collect everything. And if it was a multiple of 2, it would be 8 or 16 or 32 or 64 or 128 or 256 as far as a maximum amount. I assume what's going to happen here. Ah, they got me. Need exactly 1 blue key. And so this is another great example of not having the information until you're right at the end, and then you have to reset the levels. Which I don't agree with that as level design. That really feels fairly unfair and annoying. See, I don't know if I even need to pick up 1 blue key ever, or if there is actually 1 blue key on the way in that direction. So we'll have to roll the dice. This is an interesting way to make a maze, but I feel like the tutorial should just straight up have said, hey, we've made a maze, don't step on the keys. Which that would have been a much better hint. Like, even if you wanted to be slightly cryptic and saying stepping on keys sometimes hurts, that would be a lot better. Then some of these keys could get in the way, because that doesn't even feel like you're speaking English at that point. They are, obviously, but that doesn't have any kind of like logical explanation in my mind. So we have none of those, none of those, none of those. We can open that with that, and then we have none of those. But we don't get the Yowza. Here we have All Shook Up by Brad McCleary, which I assume means this is another one of these.
Bummer.
Where
Bummer.
you gotta move fairly quickly. Upward. And that's all the puzzle there. All action, no chips. Here's an easy level, my friend, just a clear path to victory. This is by C. Scott Davis. Interesting that they can have text in front of them. Also. And see, that's another puzzle game with none of the puzzle elements. Here's C. Scott Davis. So it's starting to look like very few of these were actually made by Chuck. Which is fair enough. I mean, if you had done the programming for the first game and hadn't done all the puzzles, though, I wouldn't be surprised even for Chips Challenge 1 if there was actually multiple people that worked on the game, and the only one who really cared about it enough to try and bring it back and publish it was Chuck. Which, yeah, that makes sense, too. That totally makes sense. Okay. I don't see a way to get through this particularly well. Seems like you have to pick up each of these keys, and then if you took this up here, and then this, and then this, well, he just took all my keys. So don't step on the blue guys, because I have to remind myself what's going on. Yeah. But you've got to step on the blue guys at some point. So you probably have to go up here, then here, 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 here. Bonus is down to 7, and at that point, they seem like they probably can't do anything more. We'll see if 7 turns to 3. Okay. So we could go down further. Or we could just go to the right. Like, it kind of seems unnecessary. Seems like we could just go to the right now and then go up. And that would save you the most amount of time. That feels like a particularly punishing level. Certainly. And we're finally back to another Chuck Somerville puzzle. And you can see that these puzzles are much more interactive as far as elements of interest. And the turtles seem to be a thing specifically that he is gung-ho about. So I'd have to assume the movement here is to push that off like that, and then push that off like that. And I think you have some level of safety here. We can do that. And some level of safety. We could do that. You could also play this top path to get that 1K bonus. I think this really highlights the old arcade style of just giving numbers and high scores, and why, for the most part, high scores are completely dead. We do have some like letter grade games like Devil May Cry that still give scores, and those scores then lead to getting a triple S, an S, an A, a B, a C, a D, an F. But that's about it as far as games going down that route. I assume that this is probably a maze pattern. Oops. It does kind of feel like there's just only certain places you can go. Hmm. And only certain ways this seems to be playable. And it might be that these are kind of locked in areas. Maybe not so much. I'm not sure if you actually have to get all of the chips in this level either. It seems like you might. Yeah, and I'm probably making a mess of this, and it probably is just a really efficient way to walk through all of this. Well, Chip, that was all very simple, but it's time to learn some new rules. Wow. I honestly wasn't even going to make it this far, because it's been 35 minutes, 36 minutes to get to this point. Lesson 2. You will have to collect all the chips on this level to pass the chip socket at the end. Grab the chips in this maze of thin purple panel walls. Which, I guess, the thin purple panel walls don't do anything from the looks of it. I kind of like that he was able to squeeze some levels that other people made in between his tutorial levels, and that is probably how I would have him design it, have Chuck Somerville design it. Be careful for monsters on this level. If you hit one, you will die. The ant hugs the left wall, tracing the path along the side of the wall. You're safe as long as you don't get in his way. Of course, that won't actually look like an ant in the Windows version. Not so much. And honestly, I thought that was a spider. The centipede hugs the right wall, tracing the path around the right side. Well, that certainly explains why you might have two different enemies that feel like they're doing almost the same thing. The glider can cross water while other monsters fall down in it. The glider will go straight until it hits something, then it will try to turn left. If it can't turn left, it will then turn right. Otherwise, it will turn around. Which I think means this pattern is fairly predictable. And this really is the kind of tutorial you would have wanted. The firebox can cross fire while other monsters avoid fire. Firebox will go straight until it hits something. It will then try to turn right. If it can't turn right, it will then turn left, otherwise it will turn around. So, I think we're safe here. And I think we're safe here. Purple bouncing ball. Purple balls bounce back the way they came. If they can't, they go straight. Which means just wait till they all bounce and then go this way. This probably indicates none of the future levels are likely to be completely devoid of enemies. Green toggle button opens and closes the green toggle doors. Yep, we experienced this exact same puzzle, just rotated 90 degrees in the first game. We can see that this tutorial level is fairly long too, and that we have 37 chips and we're collecting them slowly one by one. The green toggle changes the green chips and green bombs to their other state. Green chips and green bombs both count towards your chips left needed to pass the chip socket. What? So you can pick up the green bombs? I have a hard time believing that. I assume what happens here is I hit this, and then the green bombs turn into chips. And on the chips it says CC number 2, if you can't read that. I was just trying to see if it said like CCP, and that didn't make a lot of sense to me. But Chips Challenge 2 makes all the sense in the world. Alright, so that sped up our chip collection to just having 12 remaining. When you push an ice block into the water, it makes an ice patch. Push the ice blocks into the water to build 3 bridges. More than one ice block can be pushed at a time, so that is a different experience. Certainly. Oops. I just screwed up. I needed to... Let's see, and is there any way to save this? I needed to have pushed the blocks like this. Over. Yeah. So I probably failed, but let's get to the end of this. When you push ice blocks into the fire, they will melt into water. Push ice into the fire to make water, then push the dirt to make a dirt bridge. That's interesting combination, certainly. And again, we are just hoping that there's one extra chip somewhere, which none of these puzzles really have had extra chips, whereas it would make sense if there was at least always one extra chip in the level, or more than one extra chip in each level. Monsters are stopped by dirt and gravel. The red teeth always move toward you. Lure the teeth into the dead end. So basically take it down this way, and then he won't be able to stop you. These special colored floors and walls are just for decorations. Well, they're fairly ugly, but it does kind of highlight that there is new art, certainly, in Chips Challenge 2. And I don't want to replay all of that, so we'll just pretend like I won there. Congratulations, if you have all the chips, then you are done. If I am not, I'm screwed. Which, that's what happened for me. What's weird here is when you go into the interface, there is a controls pop-up that is different than Chips Challenge 1. And then it says there's a right player keys, which are, I can't even really read them. It looks like it's probably something, I would think it would be I, J, K, and L. Yeah, that makes sense. As two people on one keyboard pushing I, J, K, and L at this point does not do anything. Going to, let's see. Seems like we could just hit F6 to skip levels like crazy. There is something to that idea. Run for your life, Chip. So Melinda pushes a Chip aside. Hey, let me play a level. I want the next lesson. So you're now playing as Melinda. This is Melinda being female. She does things differently than Chip. She doesn't slide when she steps on ice, but she needs hiking boots to walk on dirt and gravel. So that drastically changes how the game plays, certainly. And so it isn't just a kind of generic palette swap or gender swap of a character. Or actually different abilities. But I'm not playing as a two-player experience, and it would be fairly irritating to play as a two-player experience for one specific level and then go back to playing one-player experiences. One of these blue walls is fake. Push on them to find out which it is. So, yeah, you have to get to level 19, though. Get to this one. These grains will pop down while you're standing on it. Try stepping on them to find out. Pops is down instead of staying down. And it seems like it might be a different one way than the other. This room has invisible walls that will pill when you bump into them. There are invisible walls in this world that disappear after you bump into them. Ooh. That certainly can be very annoying. This is a fairly basic tutorial level with everything being one square of the same size and shape. Blue teleporters are linked to other blue teleporters. They are linked in a predictable order. See if you can learn the rules. So, is it where it's pointing at a time, or is it the direction you walk? Like, theoretically, it seems like it might just be kind of random in order. Like, if I go down here, that took me there, 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 that took me there. So it is the same cycle always. Red teleporters also link to each other, but with different rules than the blue teleporters. So that one took me here. And I bet this just goes in kind of an opposite direction. But it's not like they have a number on top of them to say this is teleporter 1 versus teleporter 2. So it does kind of feel like the rules are still kind of confusing. Unless the rule is it always takes you like to the right first in a counterclockwise motion if it's red, and a clockwise motion if it's blue, and then it starts over again. These green teleporters teleport in a random direction. Yep, taking fairly simple concepts and just making multiple iterations on them is not a bad way to make a level or game. And then you just get stuck until you can get out. The orange button controls the flame jets. Move the dirt around to hold the buttons while you pick up the chips. Notice that the button under this dirt block works differently from the others. So they've introduced flame jets. They probably had already introduced flame jets. And she has hiking boots, not fire boots. So you'd have to be fairly careful to keep that in mind. She seems to use the water boots the same way. You can drop the rightmost tool from the right hand toolbox by pressing the Q key. Pressing the E key will rearrange that. Interesting that is the WASD keys, and that feels like that's something new to do. So that, and then that drops it. Interesting. And I wonder if that's something only Melinda can do. These steel walls are indestructible. Other walls can be destroyed by a time bomb. There goes my boots. Pick up this time bomb and drop it on the arrow, then back away at least 3 squares and wait for it to explode. Which, boy, is that a different kind of experience compared to what I would be expecting for a chips challenge. Yeah. And I guess you would call this chips challenge too. You wouldn't just try to come out with a different series using about the same graphics and about the same thing. They have to get as much money as possible for as little work as possible, because it actually is a lot of work probably back in the day to make a game like this. But I could have seen Chips Challenge 2 : Melinda's challenge and just played as Melinda the whole time and played completely differently. Don't step in the green slime. Push this dirt block over it to clear a path through it. So, okay. So, okay, there's something to that. But then you're back to playing as Chip, as C. Scott Davis level. And this is just more and more levels. It's nice that you can it seems like there's more than enough players here. So here we're at lesson 4, which is level 29. And at this point, Chip can't cross this sign, so you are gender swapping yourself using a machine. But what I'm not seeing is a real 2-player level. So they're introducing even more characters, and at this point it's too much. So I want to just skip forward and see. Remember, everything changes in the transmogrifier, which I wonder if that means other items can be transmogrified also. Apparently so. They swap between 1 or 2 states. Skipping forward. And now for 3 lessons in time management, how fast do you think you are? Ah, so they now have something that gives you more time, which you probably need to I think there was an achievement in the first game for beating the level with only 5 seconds left, which also would lead to a very low score. Yep. So now you have all kinds of time modifiers too. Man, he just kept throwing things at this. And almost certainly a significant number of people never made it past level 10 in Chips Challenge 2. I don't think I even own Chips Challenge 2. Where it, yeah, I just don't think it got sold with any Windows Entertainment Pack that I owned. And so I think it probably sold particularly fewer copies. But yeah, you really don't need to add this many elements. It's exhausting to say the least. Like, and the fact that there is potentially 200 levels in this, still with the levels being very small, is not enough to say, oh, you could really power through this. I probably could power through this. I just wouldn't want to commit my time to it. And then you have more 200 plus levels. Like, I can't help but think that Chuck actually has dog fooded, to use a industry term, like really fallen in love with his own creation a lot more than I think anyone else. And that might be why he's still to this day like making levels for level packs and releasing things. Actually, I don't know if right now he is, but he did recently release a level pack with 200 more levels to a game that really doesn't need that. If anything, you would think that his 3D or modern looking game, Chuck's Challenge 3D, would benefit from having those levels, and perhaps maybe there was some level where you could take the really interesting good levels of these. A lot of these are pretty dull and one note and simplistic. Well, simplistic is the wrong term, but a lot of these are kind of small, short and sweet experiences, trying to balance out for the really long ones, I suspect. But yeah, it's probably better to try and make a 3D game like this and sell it and potentially reskin Chips Challenge so it doesn't look like the original at all. But even if you were to do that and release it on cell phones, while you do have plenty of levels here, I don't think the controller interface is that good, and I don't feel like there's a consistent thought. It's so ADHD, for lack of a better term, of just adding more and more elements that you have to remember. Like, I would really like to see 5 core elements and values on it. If you consider like a first-person shooter game, you usually have at most 4 main guns. And in those main guns, it's usually something like a sniper rifle, a handgun, a assault rifle, and a shotgun. You don't tend to have games that get down into the nitty gritty. And apparently I went through the whole list there as far as levels. And I guess if you press F6 through everything, you can get all the way through. And then potentially select levels. So I would almost certainly suggest everyone do that. This is the absolute last level. I don't know if this 6 means anything. And since I haven't been paying really attention, I have no idea like what what everything does. So I've almost certainly messed up and needed to push the bricks on these switches. I wouldn't be surprised if these numbers are supposed to be indicators of that. Guess you probably have to do something like this. But nope, I messed up. Okay. This around to that, over to that, that, that. Let's see. Maybe you have to go all the way around. Nope, that won't work either. Like, there's something that has to kind of happen in the action, so you could come over and push bricks up. Probably have to do something like that first, then push this too far up here, come over here, do that. But that doesn't work either. So unless there's some control element I don't recognize, like, I don't see a way you solve this puzzle. Maybe you have to do something kind of like that first. I guess that lets you get back up to that point. Which then I guess maybe lets you walk around this way. Which maybe then lets you push this box up like this. And yeah, I'm having to really struggle and think things through just to get past this first puzzle. Which by the time you actively would have launched this or reached this puzzle, this should be child's play, I would imagine. I guess the eyeball is a good thing. Is this thing hard or what? Yep. Alright, well, suffice it to say that that is the final level, which means I have no idea why there is a two-player control option. Right player's keys. Because it's not doing anything in this level. So let's load in the Chips Challenge 2 level pack. Welcome to the Chips Challenge 2 level pack 1. Press enter or go to the next page. For more information, visit bitbusters.club. / Chips Challenge 2 LP CC2 LP1. This is licensed under the Creative Commons by, what is NC? 2.0 generic license. So, non-commercial? Interesting. Yeah. I don't know what the BY part of that is, but NC almost certainly stands for non-commercial, but I guess this is a Steam Workshop free expansion. And then more text. And so here you have some different names. And still playing as chips. Get 33 chips to get past the socket. They're starting fairly similar to the main game, but kind of making things a little bit more dangerous. Well, I can't swim, so I have to make this. This is a fairly complicated puzzle to start off with. You need to get these 2 chips first, then flip to that. So there's 200 more of these, and I don't think I'm particularly highlighting much if I was to just skip through all the levels. Suffice it to say, we know they exist, and if you're absolutely loving Chips Challenge, the level pack is absolutely what you would want. Interesting. So now you can walk on the railroad, where previously you were only able to move forward or back on the tracks, not leaving the tracks. If anything, I kind of have to appreciate this level in that it has kept everything fairly small and simplistic. You see the exit at the very beginning. This is modern gameplay design by far. Just keeping everything tight and easy, and knowing what you're going to do. I do want to kind of skip through this though, because I'm interested in seeing if any of these are made by Chuck, or if these are literally just people who submitted things. And the variety of names that we see will give us an idea as far as how big of a level creator fan base actually exists and are in communication with each other in Chips Challenge. I'm seeing, yeah, 7, 8 people, some of which going by pin names, which isn't terrible considering the main game felt like it was made by maybe 4 or 5 people. But yeah, these challenges are somewhat limited in the sense that it takes the audio a while to kick in, which is kind of nice. They are somewhat limited in that you can only do things that are originally available in Chips Challenge 2. You can't program in whole new things. And I suppose, while there have been a couple of fan games for things like Portal, like Portal Reloaded, for instance, there's such a increase in difficulty as far as making new levels for a modern game that concept has mostly died out. the Doom WAD was the heyday of that idea. Certainly when people all over the place were making Doom levels and sharing them. And in fact, even in 2022, a new Doom 2 level was released by, I believe, John Romero is the name of the creator. But yeah, I suppose the Forgotten City might be a good example of somebody making a Skyrim mod successful enough that they then decided to stop it being a mod and just release it as a completely standalone experience that is not using any of these Skyrim assets or probably even the same engine. But nothing is simple. Nintendo did come out with Mario Maker and Mario Maker 2, and there was definitely a good 6 months in which people were making Mario Maker levels. So there is still some small amount of demand for that, but I would say the demand comes and goes. And here we have an ending dialogue. So the absolute last level in the Chips Challenge 2-level pack is Swivel Castle, which again seems to be fairly crazy looking. Yeah. And this definitely feels like it's just a run for your life experience. And definitely you would feel like you should have 3 tries or 3 lives or checkpoints or something if this was a more modern game. There is one more thing to show off though, and that is the editor. Chips Challenge 2 does have a level editor, so you can place a chips or lots of chips. Actually, I question if you place lots of chips, can you then play the level? Level test. Yeah, you only control one chip. You don't control any of the other chips. Well, the same likes of it. But you could make mirror chips if you wanted to. Alright. Oddly, the second controller character still does not work. Almost wonder if you have to have a second keyboard plugged in for that to work. You can make very, very big levels. That is a tiny screen. Even there. You can put some borders or select multiple things and copy and drag things. But yeah, you can see how there is a limiting factor on elements. We have a letter A, but I don't know how you would change that. I'm clicking on it and then let me just hit B. Click B. B. E. Yeah. So you hit a letter, then you click on it. That seems weird. If we want to put text, how do you edit the text? Yeah, I can't even see anything as far as this editor because again, I'm 10 feet away and this editor is very rudimentary, but certainly by adding an editor here, they managed to get another 200 levels, maybe over a decade later. Um, but yeah, you can't completely deny Chips Challenge. You can also save it as a bitmap if you wanted to. Like it definitely had a level of impact, certainly, but it fails, I think, in modern time to really make people want to play it. And it's not just a skin thing. You could reskin it and make it look 3D and really just go to the Unity asset store and buy some pre-made 3D models, certainly. And that would make it look a little bit more modern, but it would still play fairly old-fashioned. There's fundamental changes that would have to happen to make a concept like this work. I do think a concept like this might work, certainly, but it would have to be very limited in its gameplay mechanics, very easy to pick up and play and understand. You wouldn't be able to make a game that like this because if this was a cell phone game and somebody put it down and didn't play it for a week, they would completely forget all the rules and the items. So it needs to be instantaneous. I see this item, it makes a real world sense why the pickaxe would break ice or why a shovel would break dirt. Things like that. And that is, for the most part, where things like Minecraft really worked out. You could probably make a significant number of the puzzles in Chips Challenge in Minecraft and do it that way if you wanted to. But yeah, you'd also need to give checkpoints. You'd also need to give levels. Portal, as a puzzle game, has a very good narrative, and it has raised the bar for all future games to have some level of narrative. When you compare this to Portal, it's laughable to make that comparison even. Or even something like The Witness. The Witness is probably a good comparison because it is a bunch of flat puzzles on screens, and it is still set in a open world 3D environment, and you feel like a human walking up to a screen playing a puzzle on a screen, whereas this feels like I'm launching a Windows 3.1 app and controlling a little sprite. And honestly, even violence is kind of off here. Feels like there should be a way to defeat the monsters, and there isn't a lot of ways to defeat the monsters in most puzzles. You're just running from them, which is not in line with most video games. Anyways, I will again apologize for screwing up the recording. This is such a odd launching of Chips Challenge 1, but I think that's enough of a spotlight as far as Chips Challenge 2. I don't own Chuck's Challenge. I probably will get it at some point in the future and spotlight it. I wouldn't be surprised if Chuck's Challenge 3D, which is on Steam, not the original Chuck's Challenge, which seems to not be on Steam. I wouldn't be surprised though if I got that and didn't actually play even the new game all the way to the end. So yeah, it is definitely not a high priority. But that's going to be it for this spotlight. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.